Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Zero Lab podcast. My name is Max and I'm joined with my fellow hosts Tom and Austin. And today we're going to be talking about some Crimson Haze card reveals. We'll be talking about some of the following set reveals. The Twilight Masquerade, is that what it's called?
Twilight Masquerade.
Yes.
Twilight Masquerade set. We'll be talking about the Loyal Three, the Kieran and Carmine supporters, and then we're gonna have a little discussion about some additional special events coming to Latin America in a couple months. We'll talk about a couple more details for the EUIC date, the EUIC event, and some more information we have. Spoiler alert: we will not be talking about the date for Worlds, though.
Yeah, no dates for Worlds.
Still not talking about that.
Still no dates.
I wonder if you have to get your invite and then they send you a top secret contract and you have to sign that you won't tell anyone else what the dates are when you receive your invite.
That has to be it. And then I think finally we'll wrap it up with some Vancouver meta discussion.
Yeah. Sounds good.
Yeah.
Well, kicking things off then with some stuff on the Twilight Masquerade, Crimson Haze set fully revealed in Japan. 66 main set cards revealed here from this PokeBeach article. We've gone over a lot of these cards already. And then the rest of the cards were revealed, and there's only a few really notable ones. So we'll go through a couple of them. If we didn't touch on any, that probably means we don't think they're that good. So we'll just scroll down through here until we get to the translations. And starting off with this Ariados, I said we would skip bad cards, but then I didn't skip the Ariados, even though it's a bad card. But it's got an ability. It's got an ability.
It does. It does.
So its ability, Big Net. Your opponent's active evolution Pokemon's retreat cost is colorless more. And then String Bind for 1 grass, 10 plus 30 more damage for each colorless in your opponent's active Pokemon's retreat cost. So if you have 2 Ariados in play, you're one-shotting Charizard EX for 1 energy.
That's pretty cool.
It is.
It's like basically just like a one prize Spidops EX, basically.
Yeah,
pretty much does the same thing.
Actually, you have to have three. Sorry, you have to have 3
evolution.
Ariados in play to one-shot a Charizard. I'm bad at math. Wait, 3?
Or you could have 1 Ariados and 2 Spidops.
Bro, 3 doesn't even do it.
Wait,
it's
320.
3 does 320.
Wait a minute. Hold on. It's 2.
So if you had 3 Ariados in play, Charizard would have a 5 retreat cost. So then it would be doing 160 plus or times 2 for the weakness. It does 320.
But it does 10 plus.
Yeah, so it does
You're
160.
forgetting.
Because 5 retreat cost would be 150 plus 10.
Oh wait. Oh, you're right.
Yeah.
I'm crazy.
Pretty unfortunate, I think. I think why not just play the Spidops over this? I guess this is like attacks for 1 energy and it's a 1 prizer.
Yeah.
But only affecting the evolution Pokemon kind of stinks, I think. I think you would be pretty happy, much more happy affecting basics.
Yeah. Things like Comfy that want to retreat, things with free retreat already like Mew EX that you'd like to give a retreat cost to, those sorts of things.
This Ariados, like all of the others that have come before it, just isn't quite it. It's just, there's something cooking.
Yeah.
But it's not enough. It's just not enough. And it bothers me because I don't know, I'm a Gen 2 stan. So every time I see like Ariados, I'm like, hey.
I'm with you too.
With my boy?
They also always have like some sort of ability that you're like, that's close to being good. There's the Ariados from I think Silver Tempest that made V-Stars attacks cost 1 colorless more.
That was cool.
Yeah. It was the original Espartha.
Yeah, but not quite good enough.
Not good enough.
I want to interject real quick here. It is actually kind of comical to me how often they're making these grass Pokemon that can't knock out Charizard. Because just like if you look a little farther down, we have this baby Iron Leaves that can do 100 plus 60 if anything was knocked out. That also does 320 so to a Charizard. So I don't know. I feel like every grass attacker is just short of knocking out Charizard, and like that's like what you want a grass attacker to do. So kind of funny.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's true. The one defense for Iron Leaves is it at least has access to the free retreat plus 20 tool.
Yeah.
True.
It's true.
That does fix that.
So moving on to the Iron Leaves, the baby Iron Leaves here. Grass, for one grass, recovery net, put up to 2 Pokemon from your discard pile into your hand. And then for grass, colorless, Vengeful Edge, 100 plus 60 more if any of your Pokemon were knocked out during your opponent's last turn. So like you said, with the Future Booster Energy Capsule, it could one-shot a Zard. And honestly, I mean, the problem is, are you really going to play the Future Booster Energy Capsule in a deck that would want to play this over the Iron Leaves EX, which would be like Lost Box and Lost Zone Tina? I don't think so.
Probably not.
Yeah.
But
it seems unlikely, but it is always an option.
Yeah. Is there anything that boosts just by 10 that's not like a tool that you'd have to run? Because there's like there's like the Zapdos, Moltres, and Articuno that increase basic water, fire, and lightning Pokemon by 10. But I don't think there's anything like that.
There's nothing for that for grass, and practice studios only stage 1s. So
right,
I don't think so.
So this really only has.
You got the King Gambit.
King Gambit. I didn't want to say it.
King Gambit.
You love King Gambit.
I love King Gambit. If that thing doesn't get a good EX, I'm gonna riot.
Has yet to have one.
Dude, I wanted to make a deck called Lost Zone King Crambit, and you just do a bunch of King Gambits and Cramorants.
That's busted.
That would be interesting.
Yeah.
Be interesting.
So you're if you get 3 King Gambits out, your Cramorant is hitting for 200.
Dude,
yeah.
That Crisis Punch is hitting.
Crisis Punch going hard.
Yeah, Crisis Punch hitting for 370.
Yeah. And it was even cooler back in the day when Mew VMAX was in the format, because King Gambit, you just run 1 reversal energy, and then the King Gambits could one-shot a Mew VMAX.
That was pretty cool. That I did like. I tried a little King Gambit deck with the metal one that like KOs anything with 4 more damage counters on it, and that was definitely the best card in the deck. Was just the Dark King Gambit because it just KOs Mew.
Anyway, moving on from the Iron Leaves, Sinistra EX is just really bad, so I'm gonna skip over it. We move on to the Chimchar line, which is interesting, but is probably going to fall into the pile of, a stage 2 card that wasn't quite good enough to warrant being a stage 2. I will say the Chimchar and the Monferno arts are pretty cool. Specifically the Chimchar, though. I like the Chimchar.
Yeah, he's leaping.
But the Infernape has the ability Fire Dancing. Once during your turn, you may attach a basic Fire Energy, a basic Fighting Energy, or one of each from your hand to your Pokemon in any way you like. So kind of an interesting energy accelerator, and then it has an attack for Fire Colorless that does 200 damage, and you discard an energy from it. So that's kind of a strong one-prize attacker. Into certain matchups potentially. The question is, what are you powering up with this that you couldn't just power up, maybe via the Lost Zone engine with Mirage Gates or something? One of the things that comes to mind is the Koraidon EX from Temporal Forces that does 280 damage for, I believe, fighting fire. And yes, you could use Infernape to power that up, but you already have Sada, and you could also use Mirage Gates and that sort of thing. So I think the Infernape will just not be quite good enough for running a stage 2.
Yeah, and also if you're gonna run some kind of accelerate, if this is your acceleration for something, if you're running it for a fire type Pokemon, it has to beat out Magma Base and Armarouge. And if you're running it for a fighting type deck, it has to beat out the Koraidon EX, I guess. Both of those cards are just easier to get set up in a stage 2. So I think maybe we'll see what the format looks like, a year or 2 from now. But I think for right now, kind of tough to see a spot where this deck or this card could shine.
It is cool because we don't get a lot of fighting type energy acceleration. A lot of the time, I think we have Gutsy Pickaxe, and you mentioned the Koraidon EX. But the Koraidon ends your turn, and the Gutsy Pickaxe you just have to get lucky off of. So if there was a fighting deck that could be good and could, play a stage 2, maybe the Infernape could work. Moving along from there, though, we have the Froakie and Frogadier. Nothing too much to mention with the Frogadier, but the Greninja EX is going to be really good, and this Froakie has a very good setup attack for a basic Pokemon, which for 1 water, it has Flock, search your deck for up to 2 Froakie, and put them onto your bench, then shuffle your deck. So this is, well, it might be the only Froakie. I don't know how many Froakies are currently standard legal, but it certainly seems to be the optimal Froakie if you're going to try to build a Greninja EX. Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely a strong, anytime you see attacks like this, very, very powerful. And even though these guys only have 60 HP, being able to get 3 of them onto your field at the end of your first turn without using Buddy Poffins or anything like that, I think is a huge advantage.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, it could allow you to Buddy Poffin for like 1 Froakie and like a Bidoof for something. And then if you can switch into the Froakie, you can get the other Froakies out. So the question is, do you want a lot of Froakies in play? We'll get to the Greninja in a little bit, but the question is, how many do you even want on your field?
Yeah. And scrolling down to the Greninja EX here, we do have a Terra fighting type Greninja EX. Has the same Terra ability as all Terras, preventing bench damage to it. But for 1 water, it has Ninja Blade, doing 170, and you may search your deck for any 1 card and put it into your hand. So 170 is very good. You're 2-shotting basically any EXs, 1-shotting anything that's weak to you, whether it's a V-Star, stage 1, 2, or basic EX of normal or lightning types. So good damage output, and you just get to search your deck for a card, which seems good. And then the second attack is really the one that people are talking about for Water Colorless. Duplicates Barrage, discard 2 energy from this Pokemon. This attack does 120 to 2 of your opponent's Pokemon. So Gmax Rapid Flow, but better, is back, sort of.
Yeah, and I think talking about it being a fighting type, I think something important to mention is that it's got that psychic weakness, which right now in current format is a terrible weakness to have. But by the time this card is out, could be a much stronger weakness to have, as Mew will be gone at that point. Mew VMAX. Gardevoir, we don't really know how good Gardevoir is going to be, but it seems like it's going to be much, much worse than it is currently. So not a ton of strong psychic attackers, at least as we know so far. So kind of nice having like a weakness like that.
The funny thing is, as we get to the item cards here, there could be some hope for Gardevoir. But we'll scroll down a little bit further and get through the Pokemon here first. Actually, that is the end of the Pokemon. So getting down into the item cards, we've already talked about Unfair Stamp and Enhanced Hammer on the podcast, but another A-Spec was revealed, the Hyper Aroma, which allows you to search your deck for up to 3 Stage 1 Pokemon, reveal them, and put them into your hand. Then shuffle your deck. So a few things to note there. It doesn't limit you to non-rule box Stage 1 Pokemon, so not that these decks would want to use it, but something like Gimmighoul or Goldango could play this to get all their Goldangos out. They still probably want to play the Prime Catcher, but you could do that. But really, this seems just perfectly made for Gardevoir to find those Curlias.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, absolutely.
I could see you like having, playing a bunch of Arvins, and then you have the option of either going for like that TM Evo play, if you're going second, or going for just like the Hyper Aroma going first, and you'll just always have the option to get your Curlies into play. And that's like with Level Ball rotating and the Mirage Step Curlia rotating, it's going to be a lot harder to find your Curlias, and that's like what you really need to do to get the deck up and running, is establish a bunch of Curlias early on in the game.
And with Guardian pivoting to having to play the tool cards to power up things like Drifloon and Screamtail as its attackers, an Arvin engine already makes sense for post-rotation Guardy. So playing 4 Arvins to be able to find this hyper aroma more easily makes a lot of sense already.
Yeah, I think the biggest struggle for this card will be if it's gonna have to battle for the A spec slot in Guardy with the Hero's Cape, which is also a very strong option for the deck. Austin, looking at these two between Hyper Aroma and Hero's Cape, which one would you lean towards including in Guardy?
I mean, to be honest, it's kind of a tough decision. I think I feel a little bit more like I'm leaning towards Hyper Aroma personally, just because it's easier to play the game when you can actually play the game. So I think that that's going to be one of the biggest problems that Guardy's going to have is obviously losing Level Ball was huge. This absolutely makes up for that, assuming you don't prize it. And as you were mentioning, I think a quad Arvin build is almost certainly going to be the way forward for Guardy. And so being able to search this out on the turn, presumably turn 2 that you need this, I think is going to be pretty easy to do. So this is what I'm leaning towards personally, but obviously the cape is incredibly powerful too. But it does, you can still hit for incredible numbers without the 100 additional HP from the cape. And there are other tools that can be slotted in for that deck slot. So I think I definitely feel like this is the one that I lean towards.
And if Greninja is really good, there's going to be, matchups where you can just attack with the Gardevoir EX and not worry as much about.
Right, because you just one-shot with the EX.
Yeah.
So that'll be huge. Yeah, if Greninja does ever get big, Guardy does have some good answers to it seems.
Definitely.
On the surface, at least.
And then the last A spec that I don't think we've talked about yet on here is the Survival Cast. If this card is attached, if the Pokemon this card is attached to has full HP and would be knocked out by damage from an attack from your opponent's Pokemon, that Pokemon is not knocked out and its remaining HP becomes 10, then discard this card. So kind of like a Focus Sash sort of thing going on here. I guess most people's first reaction is this seems sort of like a control card, I guess. What are your thoughts, Max?
Yeah, I think that it's possible we could see some sort of loop with this, with like Roseanne's backup or something like that, where we put this on something that has some sort of either like attack that can like recycle like cards such as like Crushing Hammer or something like that, where you can just keep like denying resources from your opponent, and then you can, if you have a good way to recycle the tool. I think the big thing is that it gets discarded after it's used. So if there's a good way to recycle it, it could be a pretty strong controlling card. But as every A-Spec tool card, we do have to bring up the fact that Lost Vacuum is in format, and it's a very powerful card that I think a lot of decks will be likely including in their lists. And so playing something like this as my A-Spec does kind of worry me a little bit, just because of how weak something like this is to Lost Vacuum.
One thing I think is worth noting, though, with Survival Cast is that it does not discard itself if its ability doesn't actually proc. So if you throw this on a basic Pokemon, this can continue to be penny looped back. At least that's the way that it seems to be written right now. So if that ends up being the case, then forcing continuous 2 shots might be extremely annoying. If you
I was going to say, I forgot,
automatically hit the 2 shot.
I didn't read it right. If it only gets discarded if the Pokemon would have been knocked out. But let's say, a Charizard EX has this on it, and you hit the Charizard for 180. That's still on there. It's just not going to have its effect anymore because the Pokemon doesn't have full HP anymore.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah.
So theoretically, throw this on something like a Blood Moon Ursaluna, right? And even just keep penny looping, and bada bing, bada boom, you got something maybe there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think this card's going to be legal for NAIC, and so if there's any player in the game that will be including this card in the list, it'll be Sander. I think if this card sees any success, it'll be from something he cooked up.
Yeah, for sure.
I could see it. I could definitely see it.
Yeah, I think the only limiting thing, for this, like you said, Max, is how prevalent Lost Vacuum is in the format. But right now, it seems there's very few decks playing it going into this next format and Temporal Forces. And unless something else is printed in Twilight Masquerade, like a Path to the Peak like Stadium or something, I would imagine Lost Vacuum still stays relatively low in decks.
Yeah.
But that's about it
Okay.
for the good cards in Crimson Haze. But it sounded like, Austin, you had a thought on the survival cast.
Oh, I sure do. How can we not talk about how terrible Love Ball is? I mean, it's so bad.
Yeah.
I don't know if we've talked about this already, but I just can't believe how terrible it is.
Yeah, let's talk about it. Search your deck for a Pokemon with the same name as one of your opponent's Pokemon in play. Reveal it and put it into your hand, then shuffle your deck. Just why would this ever see play, and why couldn't it have been at least something moderately helpful? Like, it could have just been search for a Pokemon with the same name as one of your Pokemon in play. Is that
Right.
friend ball already, though? I guess from prior formats, but
I
still.
think so.
I think
right,
Friend Ball, I think that was opponent's field.
Yeah, I think it was like the same type as one of your opponent's Pokemon in play.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I actually just solved Love Ball while we're sitting here. I'll tell you why this card got printed. Because the Blood Moon Ursaluna meta is nigh upon us. That card is going in every deck. And so when your opponent brings out their Blood Moon Ursaluna, now you can find your Blood Moon Ursaluna.
There you go. That's it. It's the
That's
Blood
it.
Moon Ursalunas. Or
Pay no more nest ball for it.
yeah, or
There
it's
you
every deck is going to include a 1/1 Palkia, a Greninja, and a Prime Catcher plus Canceling Cologne, and so now everybody can find their mana fees.
There we go.
All
Oh
right.
my gosh.
Moving on from Crimson Haze, we have our next English set revealed, which will be coming out on May 24th, with pre-releases taking place starting May 10th. Twilight Masquerade going to be the set legal for NAIC in June. This is going to feature all of the cards from Crimson Haze, plus the cards from the next Japanese set, which I believe is called Mask of Change, which is going to be the Ogerpon set. So we have some of the products here. The pack arts look pretty cool. I'm excited for the Blood Moon Ursaluna playmat that is inevitable. We have pictures of the ETB and some of the contents in there, some of the 3-pack blisters and all that good stuff. But we get down to the meat and potatoes of things here with the 4 Ogerpon cards revealed. All of them are Terra EXs, and each of them are a different type and have different utility in what could be an Ogre Box deck. Max, do you want to talk to us about the Ogerpons?
Yeah, for sure. So I think first of all, we'll talk about what they do. We have the Teal Mask Ogerpon EX, which is like the basis of the Ogerpons for the most part. It's got this teal dance ability. Once during your turn, you may attach a basic grass energy card from your hand to this Pokemon. If you attached energy to a Pokemon in this way, draw a card. And so this is going to be the main way you accelerate energy and draw some cards in if you're playing like an Ogerpon box style deck. And so it's got this attack for 3 grass energies. Myriad Leaf Shower does 30 damage, and then it does 30 more damage for each energy attached to both active Pokemon. So notably, if you have the 3 grass energy required to use this attack, and you are swinging into a Charizard EX that has 2 energy, which is what their attack costs, you will be one-shotting a Charizard EX. So finally, we have a grass Pokemon that just straight up one-shots Charizard EX.
If they have the energy
finally
on
do
the
it.
Charizard.
If
If
they
for
have the
some
energy on the
reason they only
Charizard.
have 1 energy on the Charizard,
That's fine.
That sounds like a fail on your
then you just
opponent's
need
part.
4 energy. Yeah. Add Charizard with energy, we're chilling.
Yeah.
And then going on to the next one, we have the Hearthflame Mask Ogerpon EX. It's a fire type. This one, right away, it feels like the weakest Ogerpon of the bunch by far. It's got the Wrathful Hearth attack for fire colorless. It does 20 damage for each damage counter on this Pokemon. This attack could, like, it's just like the Ogerpon EXs, they all have 210 HP. And so it doesn't really seem like they're going to be able to live a hit very easily. There's some cards that won't be able to one-shot them. But, like, it doesn't seem super likely that you'll eat enough damage that you'll be able to return KO with the Wrathful Hearth super easily. It seems like a very niche scenario. And then on the other attack, Dynamic Blaze for triple fire, it does 140, and then if your opponent's active Pokemon is an evolution Pokemon, this attack does 140 more damage, and then you discard all energy attached to this Pokemon. So 280 is a good number to hit for sure. And then if you choose to include like Max Belt or something like that, you're hitting 330, which is pretty strong. That one shots a Charizard EX. Also, or some of the other just big EXs in play can one shot like Gardevoir EX. However, the big problem with using this attack is getting 3 fire energy onto this Pokemon. There's not really with the cards we see now. There's not really a good way to do that, and so we could definitely see some other cards get revealed that make this more possible. But for now, this card seems relatively on the weaker side. But moving into the next 2 Ogrepons, things are looking a little bit up because we have the Wellspring Mask Ogrepon EX. Water type, it's got a attack for 1 colorless called Sob. During your opponent's next turn, the defending Pokemon can't retreat. One of this kind of attack is just a useful tool. Mawile has seen a lot of success over its time in the format in a couple different decks. Snorlax Stall also does something similar, but on an ability. Just being able to trap something in the active can be pretty strong. Sometimes a deck won't have an out to it, and so you can just like trap something and you win. But the main selling point of this card is its second attack. For water, colorless, we have the Torrential Pump. It does 100, and you may shuffle 3 energy attached to this Pokemon into your deck. And if you do, this attack also does 120 to one of your opponent's bench Pokemon. And so this is pretty similar to Rapid Strike Urshifu VMAX. Rather than discarding the energy, you shuffle them back in. And the other main difference is that you don't get to do 120 to 2 of anything. You have to swing for 100 into their active, so it's a little bit weaker. But I still think this is a pretty good attack. You could you have the option of gusting, if you're playing against Chi and Pao, say for example, and they have 2 B barrels set up, you could gust up a B barrel and sob it for 20, and then you could torrential pump and take 2 KOs on B barrels. I think, and even if you're not doing a convoluted play like that, still hitting 120 to a bench Pokemon, that's just perfect math for KOing B barrels. And that seems to me like that'll be the main application of this card. B barrel seems like it's in a pretty strong spot for next format with Buddy Buddy Pop and making it easy to find your B-doofs. And so
an unfair stamp being a thing.
Unfair stamp being a thing. So if you could unfair stamp opponent and KO their B barrel, that seems pretty strong to me. And then finally, the last Ogrepon EX that we have is going to be that Cornerstone Mask Ogrepon. With the Cornerstone Stance ability, prevent all damage from attacks done to this Pokemon by your opponent's Pokemon that have an ability. So we have something similar to this in the format currently in that Alolan Vulpix V-Star. However, that is on an attack. This is just straight up in play as soon as you bench it.
Just strictly better.
Just strictly better. Especially with no Path to the Peak in format. And so this Cornerstone Stance ability, it'll be much, much harder and to turn it off. There's a couple cards that can do it, but nothing super relevant. You'd be better off just trying to swing into it with something without the ability, rather than try to turn its ability off. And then it's got the attack Demolish for fighting colorless. It does 140, but it ignores weakness. But then again, it also ignores resistance and any other effects on your opponent's active Pokemon. So it's a Shred type attack. Shred type attacks are pretty much always very, very strong. It's nice to be able to deal with cards like Mimikyu, with cards like another Cornerstone Mask Ogrepon EX. You got the mirror match.
The mirror match, man.
And so the Cornerstone Mask, I think, to me, seems like the strongest one. And the Wellspring one's not far behind. And how we are activating these is our item card Ogre's Mask. So this is an item card that reads, choose a Pokemon EX in your discard pile that has Ogrepon in its name and switch it with one of your Pokemon EX in play that has Ogrepon in its name. And then all attached cards, damage counters, special conditions, turns in play, and other effects remain on the new Pokemon. So it is an item version of Thornton strictly for Ogrepon EX. and which I love Thornton, as these guys know. And so a card like this I think seems really cool. So it seems like the general idea of this deck is you blast a bunch of energy into play onto your grass ogre pawns, and then you attach either something like a luminous or just a basic water, basic fighting, and you ogre's mask into one of these other options. Whatever seems to be the best use in whatever situation you're facing. So it's kind of like a box style deck. You just choose the attacker that'll be the most helpful. Um, Side note, we also have this baby teal mask ogre pawn that it can't be used with this ogre's mask card, as it has to be an EX to use the mask card with it. But it's got like a bench attack, or an attack that does more damage for each of your opponent's bench Pokemon. It does 20 plus 20 for each of your opponent's bench Pokemon. So interesting, but doesn't seem too good. It doesn't have an ability, so you could use it to swing into something like the Cornerstone Mask, but you already can do that with your own Cornerstone Mask.
Yeah. This does hit weakness on the Cornerstone Mask, though, so you could one-shot in an Ogre Pawn mirror with the baby
true.
Grass Ogre Pawn.
But the pro Ogre Pawn players aren't going to bench more than 4 guys.
Yeah, they're going to know what's up in the mirror. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, they will know. They will know.
If you're interested in what seeing like an early type deck list could look like, we actually put out a video a couple days ago that shows like what an Ogre box style deck could look like. So check that out if you're interested. But I think I want to see a few more cards come out to see like how strong this kind of deck could be. But I think I'm cautiously optimistic. I think it's a very cool archetype, and I will be excited to experiment with it a little bit. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I think what's really interesting about this deck is that they all are individually named. And so what that means is you can easily run 4 of the grass type Ogre Pawn EX and almost utilize sort of an energy switch engine if needed, in the same way that we've seen Moon kind of utilize with the Moltres, Galarian Moltres V. And so there's a few things like that definitely are piquing my interest with this. And there's also some natural synergy, I think, even with is it Aurora Energy? Is that the card I'm thinking of?
Luminous Energy.
Luminous Energy. That's right. Aurora was the old one. Yeah, with Luminous Energy, and there's also some synergy even with Double Turbo. And so I think that there's a lot of potential options. I think there's going to be a lot that is going to need to be tested with this deck. And yeah, I'm definitely curious to see what other cards may complement them as we see more of this set get fully revealed. For instance, maybe there is an additional item card that has some sort of energy acceleration from discard or something else like that. I think that would easily turn this into definitely a contender for a deck that could definitely steal some wins pretty easily.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this seems pretty cool. I am pretty high on the Cornerstone Mask Ogre Pawn just by looking at the current format. I mean, if this card was in the current format, it would just auto win Charizard, Chien-Pao, Goldango, those sorts of decks as they're currently built, because they basically just have nothing that can attack into it. They have a few things, but not a lot. And once this card is in the format, decks are going to have to find ways to play around it. And a lot of decks do have access to something that can do that. Charizard, for example, has the Gouging Fire that could one-shot this and doesn't have an ability. Chien-Pao could attack into this twice with Iron Hands to knock it out, and it doesn't get knocked out in return because Demolish doesn't hit for weakness. Those sorts of things. So there are ways around it, but it certainly does make people think about deck building a little bit differently just by this being in the format.
Exactly.
Yeah, definitely.
Even if it's not in an Ogre Pawn deck specifically, just the fact that this could be in anything that has any amount of splashable fighting energy.
Yeah, I mean, in Arceus decks, I think they probably just don't even think about Alolan Vulpix anymore. They just play this and maybe Poppy to move some energy to it, or they just manually attach with fighting double colorless, and then this is swinging. But I think Arc decks could certainly, if in this format they're leaning towards the Alolan Vulpix, in the next format when this is out, they just disregard that altogether.
Yeah, could definitely see that.
Yeah.
The other thing is, canceling clone shuts off the ability. And maybe there's other ways to get around it too that I haven't thought about, but there are ways to get around it, but you'd have to pretty intentionally put those into your deck. So
Right. They can be inconvenient.
yeah, so pretty cool. Getting a quick look at the next format, which is in just 8 to 9 weeks. We'll have Twilight Masquerade, and we're still in the hype season for Temporal Forces. So it's pretty crazy how quickly these sets are coming out. When it felt like a long drought of Paradox Rift to Temporal Forces, but now they're coming fast. Going on to the next article here from Poke Beach, we had a few more cards also revealed from what would be the Twilight Masquerade set. And it is the Loyal 3 from the DLC, Monkey Dory, Pheasantipede, and Okidogi. And they're all pretty interesting, and the fact that they all have a similarity between them makes me think that there's going to be some sort of engine that they create with these cards that we haven't seen yet. But starting off with the Monkey Dory, it has the Adrenaline Brain ability. Once during your turn, if this Pokemon has any darkness energy attached to it, you may move up to 3 damage counters from one of your Pokemon to one of your opponent's Pokemon. And then it has Mind Bend for Psychic Colorless, and it does 60 damage. Your opponent's active Pokemon is now confused. So some damage manipulation from your side of the board over to your opponent's side of the board could be very interesting, could set up some math in certain decks. Like in a Gardevoir EX deck, this could be kind of interesting. Are you really going to run Darkness Energy in a Gardevoir EX deck? Probably not. But, you are damaging your own guys when you're powering up the Gardevoir, or powering up attackers with Gardevoir EX, and then you can move some of that damage off with the Monkey Dory. That would be kind of interesting.
Yeah, if there's anything I know, the card like this has Austin written all over it. He loves this type of card. So I want to hear what you think, because you played a card very similar to this at one of your regionals, right?
One of his top 64 regionals.
His top 64.
Yep. I played Agatha. To a top 64 Indianapolis finish in 2022 with the Agatha. Full art, mind you. Had to flex it.
Had to flex on him.
But yeah, I think I love this ability. This is a very strong ability. It's inherently both offensive and defensive, in the sense that you're essentially healing 3 damage off of one of your dudes, and you're doing an additional 3 damage. And obviously, we don't have to talk much about how powerful 3 additional damage can be, from the likes of Choice Belt and like all of these powerful cards that have been sort of staple cards in the format for so long. And, this activation requirement for this ability to simply have a darkness energy attached to it, it also does not have to be a basic darkness energy, mind you.
So Luminous fulfills
Luminous
the
energy
attack cost.
Absolutely fulfills for that. And so I think there could be something with this. And I think that there could be something with Monkey Dory, and we'll get to this card in a second, but the Pheasantipede, I don't know. I don't think if you have access to these 2 cards, even potentially, you do something in Gardevoir with some of these somehow. I mean, the deck is tight, so I don't know if it'd be able to be fit, but in theory, it'd be quite good if you could manage to pull something like that off. So I'm curious to see how this ability will be used over the course of the next 2 or 2.5 years, because I think it's very strong, and I think it will see some play in at least one deck at some point.
For sure. Then we have the Pheasantipede with the Adrenaline Pheromones ability. If this Pokemon has any darkness energy attached to it, there's the similarity between these 3. And if any damage is done to this Pokemon by attacks, flip a coin if heads prevent that damage. Again, if you're flipping heads, that's a very strong ability. And then for 1 Psychic, it has Energy Feathers. It does 30 times the amount of energy attached to this Pokemon. So again, in a Gardevoir deck, you can power this attacker up, and if you have a darkness energy attached to it, you can be swinging for a lot of damage and might not be able to be KO'd in return.
Yeah, I think an abilities like these are actually kind of underrated, in my opinion. I mean, for sure, you're flipping a coin, so there's like some people don't like dealing with like coin flip
Mm-hmm.
effects and like relying on some luck, but being able to survive an attack is just it can just be so strong. Recently we've had the card Ambipom from Pokemon Go has the a similar ability, and so which that card wasn't very good, but also you had to flip for the damage that
Mm-hmm.
it's attacked did. This one just does straight up damage that, and you can again with Gardevoir EX can easily load up a bunch of damage or a bunch of energy onto this to make it
Mm-hmm.
do a lot of damage. And
Right.
so yeah, even just flipping one or two heads throughout a game on a card like this, like it can really swing the prize trade.
Yeah,
Let me
absolutely.
paint you a scenario here. Okay. You turn attach a luminous energy. All right. Your Gardevoir EX attaches 5 energy from the discard pile to your Pheasantipede. Okay, you're starting to hit for 180. You Arven for Luxurious Cape. You attach Luxurious Cape to Pheasantipede. You accelerate 5 more energy. I mean, this is a lot of energy, but just bear with me here. Now you're swinging for 330, and this thing may not die next turn. And it may not die the next turn after that.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't know. There's something. There's got
it's
to be
pretty
something
cool.
there.
It is pretty cool. Um, yeah, like you said, Max, these abilities can be underrated, and I also don't think we've had this ability on a basic before. We had it on a stage 2 Dragapult, then we had it
Mhm.
on a stage 2 Ambipom, or on a stage 1 Ambipom, and now we have it on a basic, and I think that's the first time we've ever had this ability on a basic, or if not the first time, it's been a while.
That's a good point. Yeah, it
Yeah.
really this is a very low like maintenance card to get into
Mhm.
play. Like you have to get that darkness energy on it to get access to the ability, but like that's like not too difficult. We have like Vessel in the format. We have ways to search out energy.
Mhm.
So yeah, I do think there's something here with this card.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Now we're getting to my favorite of the three, though, and that is the Okidogi. It has the ability Adrenaline Power. If this Pokemon has any darkness energy attached to it, it gets plus 100 HP, and its attacks do 100 more damage to your opponent's active Pokemon. And then for fighting, it has Oki Punch, which is 70 damage. And
Okie punch, bro.
dude, first of all, my childhood dog's
Okie
name was
punchy.
Oki.
Oh, are you
No way.
serious?
Yeah.
All right,
So
that's actually so
punching
sick.
my dog. But yeah, dude, this card is so sick. It hits a great weakness. It has 230 HP once you've attached a dark energy to it. You could attach a luxurious cape to it to make it have 330 HP as a basic Pokemon, and
Oh
uh,
man.
it's doing 170 damage, which is just two-shotting anything in the format. Basically, one-shotting lightning Pokemon and normal Pokemon, so one-shotting those pesky, Blood Moon Ursalunas and Iron Hands. And then on top of that, if your opponent goes to one prize card remaining, you can just slap a TM Crisis Punch on this thing and do 380 damage.
That's
Yeah, that's
absurd.
ridiculous. It's
And
very cool.
yeah,
It
and
is very
the
cool.
attack cost can be fulfilled with one fighting and one luminous energy. And the luminous would count as both the second fighting energy you need and the darkness energy you need to activate the ability. So I guess we were talking about fighting energy acceleration. We have Gutsy Pickaxe, we have the new Infernape, and we have Koraidon EX. I don't know if you need any of that for this specifically, but you could also play it in a Lost Zone deck. You could play a Luminous Energy in the Lost Zone deck and then power up something else plus with Mirage Gate plus get a fighting energy on this, or you could just throw 3 energy on it, 2 fightings and a dark with Mirage Gates, and have a 230 HP basic attacker that can respond to Iron Hands and Lost Box. Seems very good. And like I said, you can pair this with the Crisis Punch later as well and do 380. I think that just seems really good to me. I don't know.
Yeah.
I agree. I very much agree with that. I think
Yep.
out of all 3 of these, this one seems to be the clearly most powerful of the
Yeah.
bunch.
Yeah, definitely.
Now, Austin, I have a question for you because I know you didn't play Scarlet and Violet, but I know Max did.
Yeah.
Do you know what Pecharunt is?
Wait, what is it?
Pecharunt. Pecharunt.
I
Okay,
have no clue what that is. That's
Max,
some
do
kind
you
of
know
dog
about
treat?
Pecharunt?
I do know about
Okay.
Petulant.
I thought you would. I thought you would. Well, Austin, Pecharunt is a little villainous Pecha Berry Pokemon that is actually the leader of these three Pokemon.
What?
And yeah, it's a mythical Pokemon. And you can Google it now if you want and look up a picture. I won't do it now
Okay.
while we're on the cast. But it is the leader of these three. And my theory is it will accelerate dark energy to them.
Bro, I just looked up a picture of this thing and it's hilarious.
Dude, it's so sick.
What am I looking at?
It's a berry, dude.
He
It's a berry.
makes them eat it's mochi, and then they obey him.
Oh my.
Yeah.
So he's got some mind control mochi.
So you see these things have the toxic chains on them? Those were from the Pecharunt.
Wow. That's wild.
He's
Man,
these are Pecharunt's like slaves.
the minions, dude.
Yeah. It's crazy.
What? That's wild.
I
I
guarantee
like your
dude,
theory. I like your theory a lot. I didn't think about that, but
Yeah.
yeah, there's definitely going to be some kind of interaction.
Pecharunt's gotta accelerate dark energy to them. It has to.
That would be super cool. That would be super, super cool.
But that remains to be seen. Will we see Pecharunt in this set? Or will we have to wait? Because it technically didn't come out in the first DLC. It came out after the second DLC. So will we have to wait a set? Or will we see Pecharunt soon? We'll see. We also know that we're getting EX versions of these in our August set. I think we already know that. So we might not see the Pecharunt interactivity until August. But
I want to see a 160 HP Pecharunt card. EX.
EX,
Like
that
Pecharunt EX.
once during
It's
your turn
like-
you may accelerate a darkness energy from your hand to one of your Monkey Dory, Pheasantipede, or Okidogi in play.
Yeah, exactly. I'd love to see it.
I'm
I
here
would be
for it.
for it.
I'm here
Yeah.
for it. But moving off the Loyal 3, we also have a couple of trainer cards to look at here that all seem to be pretty good. Carmine is a supporter that says if you go first, you may play this card during your first turn, discard your hand, and draw 5 cards. You can play it after your first turn as well, so you just have a new discard, draw 5 supporter. But this is one of the few supporters in the format where you're allowed to play it on your first turn. It may be the only one. I think there might be a couple others, but none of them are good. But
Yeah,
this
it's the
seems
only
very
good one
good.
for sure.
Yeah, this seems very good. And a lot of the times people would be playing something like Squawkabilly EX, which is a 2 prize liability on your bench to be able to do something like this on your first turn going first. And now you can either not have to use Squawkabilly, or you can use Squawkabilly and Carmine on your first turn going first, and in some sort of very aggressive turbo deck.
Right. I think what's super interesting about this card is that it could, like, it's obviously not as powerful as Professor's Research in the mid and late game, but it could theoretically replace Professor's Research in a deck that you're trying to avoid using any cards like Luminion or Squawkabilly in. But also, I think this card makes Luminion an even more powerful option to consider in decks, because being able to Ultra Ball for Luminion to find Carmine, and then being able to rip this, I think is really, really strong. And so if you are feeling like you're having a tough decision and you don't have deck space to fit both a Luminion and a Squawkabilly in your deck, maybe you skip the Squawkabilly and you play one of Carmine, and then you just keep the Luminion.
Yeah. The only problem that I'm having in my mind with this supporter is I'm just thinking that there's so many decks in the current standard format that don't play research even, because there's not a lot of things that they can happily discard out of their hand. Charizard doesn't want to be discarding its rare candies. If you open, a rare candy and a Super Rod or something in your Charizard deck, you don't want to Carmine those away. Qian Pao doesn't want to be, discarding its superior energy retrievals and rare candies. The best deck I guess I can think of for this is Lugia, but even Lugia is hesitant to play, a bunch of research nowadays, leaning more heavily into Serenas and Ionos because they don't want to discard their whole hand because it could be all special energies. So I think the only limiting factor for this card will be finding a deck that doesn't really care what it throws away. It's just like ready to turbo through itself and get to the bottom of the deck as fast as possible, and it doesn't really care what it pitches away.
Yeah, I think like this is rotating, but a deck like the Zorobox deck would have liked to see something like this. Just get a bunch of stage ones into the discard like on your first turn and just get set up. But sadly, that is no longer in the format. But maybe we'll have some kind of similar style of deck that, yeah, like you said, wants to get some resources in the discard very quickly to set up.
They finally are giving Zorobox the tools it needed between the search your deck for 3 stage 1s and now
Yeah.
Carmine, and they're just ripping it away from us. It
Yeah.
Just a
just
little too
makes me
late.
feel sick. Ugh.
But moving on from the Carmine, we do have the Kieran, which is a supporter that lets you choose one of 2 options. Either switch your active Pokemon with one of your bench Pokemon, or during this turn, your Pokemon's attacks do 30 more damage to your opponent's active Pokemon EX or active Pokemon V. So this gives me vibes of Leon that we had in the past during the Sword and Shield era, but better because it has that additional text on it that is just another switching effect. And decks like Charizard that like to have some switching effects in them and like to have their damage output boosted, I could see playing a card like this for sure.
Yeah, I think if I don't know, in the same way that we've seen cards like Justified Gloves or Defiance Band be included in Charizard, I think that this could easily be a one-of inclusion in Charizard decks, especially if they end up being as powerful as a lot of the speculation and sort of a lot of the results from the Japan tournaments are suggesting that it's going to be. This is a very, being able to do an additional 30 damage to an opponent's Zard as Charizard can sometimes mean the difference between winning and losing. And the fact that this also has the added benefit of, just like you said, Tom, being an additional switch card. You're almost, killing 2 birds with 1 stone. And maybe you just cut the switch and just add a Kieran.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think this can save a space in some decks. And both these effects are pretty much universally going to always be useful. Like being able to switch is pretty much always going to be useful in any deck, and being able to do 30 more damage is pretty much always going to be useful. So just having 2 very useful effects on one card is kind of nice. It can just save you a slot, and you can put something else in your deck, and then use this card however the situation calls for.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm definitely a big fan of this card, and we'll be excited to see what decks include it.
For sure. And then the last card, just briefly here, we have the Bug Catching set. Look at the top 7 cards of your deck. You may choose up to 2 in any combination of grass Pokemon and basic grass energy cards you find there, reveal them, and put them into your hand. Then shuffle the other cards back into your deck. So a enhanced Great Ball, I guess, for grass decks. And this seems like it would be very good in something like the Ogerpon deck when you're trying to accelerate grass energies with a grass attacker.
Yeah, this is definitely some of the best grass support we've gotten in a long time. We had like Gardenia's Vigor as a supporter, and that supporter's like mega stinks. So having Bug Catching set is just really nice. Honestly, a Bug Catching set makes Gardenia's Vigor like actually like maybe an option to use in grass deck set, because just being able to find your grass energy and find your grass Pokemon, that's just it's just a very, very strong card. We've seen Great Ball seen play in decks. We've seen Energy Lotto see play in decks. And so something like this that does both in one item card, pretty good.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I agree. And maybe some GLC use as well.
Oh yeah, fantastic in GLC.
Absolutely. Well, moving on from here, we have some news on the 2024 Championship Series with some special events added in Latin America. I believe it was 5 new special events added in Latin America, all in the month of May. So one of them is wild. On the weekend of May 4th and 5th. 2 of them are on the same weekend, May 11th and 12th, and then another 2 of them are on the same weekend, May 25th and 26th. The first one's in Mexico or in Argentina. The second two are in Mexico and Colombia, and then the last ones are in Mexico and Peru. So special events are somewhat like regionals. However, they do not have cash prizing. So they have points and pack prizing, I believe, but they do not have cash prizing. And sorry, the other thing that I should mention is the May 11th and 12th special event is only Pokemon Go, which is interesting.
Yeah, pretty cool to see the Pokemon Company put some additional championship point events on the schedule. Just give some more people a little bit of an extra chance to get their invite, and definitely nice for Latin America, which hasn't had a ton of events. They didn't have a ton of events scheduled for the season, so definitely nice to see that region get some more of their own. I think that'll be pretty hyped to see what kind of decks we see cooked up there. Latin America was the birthplace of Arvinzard. That was a really cool thing that we saw. So I like to see the innovation coming from that region.
Yeah, absolutely. So congrats to them, and congrats to any other players who intend to travel down there. I'm sure there will be a lot of stipend chasing in Q4, and the special events will be a big part of that, I'm sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is a little sad for me. I was thinking about going for stipend in Q4, but these might sort of ruin those plans because there's going to be North American players going to all of these.
Well, at least you can't go to all of them, right? Because they overlap a little bit. So the most
That's
you can
true.
hit is 3.
So May 4th and 5th is Indianapolis already in North America. And then is the 25th and 26th LA regionals.
I can pull that up right now.
So I guess North American players could only poach at the May 11th and 12th special event.
Yeah, you're right. That is that 24th or that 25th, 26th
Yeah.
is LAC.
Okay, so
All right.
maybe it's a little bit different, than I thought. Maybe there's still some hope. But moving on from here, we will also take a look at some more information about the 2024 Pokemon European International Championships, which is just coming up. Excuse me, in 2 weeks here. Max and I will be there. Both of us are very excited for it, and there's some additional information in this article on the Pokemon website that I wasn't aware of. Maybe other people were, but some cool information in here for those of you attending. They have the full schedule of the event in here. So Friday, it shows that we start, TCG Masters start at 9 a.m. and plan to end around 9:30 p.m. That tells me we also probably have a lunch break here at UIC if we're not ending till 9:30. I guess it is a little bit later start though than 2. Normally we do start around 8:30. And then it shows day 2 plans to start at 9 a.m. for day 2 and around 8 p.m. 5:30 p.m. for day 2 Masters Swiss rounds, and then top 8 and top 4 would go until they finish. And then it shows the Sunday finals timeline as well, which is pretty cool to see. We have a map of the convention center as well, sort of showing where the stages will be, where the various games will be as well. So that's nice to have a map of going into the event. And then it also has badge pickup time. So Masters, Division, TCG, and VG players, and all Unite players and all Pokemon Go players, check-in and badge pickup will be Thursday, April 4th from 1 p.m. to 8 p.m. That makes it sound like that's the time you're supposed to do it, because there is juniors and seniors badge pickup 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. on Friday, but that's because the juniors and seniors don't actually start playing until Saturday, I believe. So Masters all need to pick up on Thursday because we start excuse me, because we start on Friday. So that's good to know that if you are a Masters player, you need to pick up your badges on Thursday, and you only have between 1 p.m. and 8 p.m. to do it. Excuse me. We also get a look at the welcome kit, and I was more excited about this than I should have been because it's just the swag for the tournament. But I actually don't think that in recent memory there's been a difference between the IC swag. And so it's always been like the same swag. It just would say LAIC, EUIC, or NAIC. but it looks a little bit different this year for EUIC than what we got at LAIC. At LAIC, we got sleeves with Fluttermane and a hat with Fluttermane on it, and then the borders were like a little bit more pink on the playmats rather than sort of the blue border they have on here. And for UIC, we get the Iron Valiant sleeves and Iron Valiant hat, as well as the playmats. So pretty cool to see there as well.
Yeah, Paradox Pokemon are cool. I like the designs of them. So we'll be excited to get them on a mat.
Yeah, absolutely. And the top 8 mat and champion mat both look pretty cool. So, everybody's always gunning for those.
Yeah.
They do look quite nice. Congratulations in advance to whoever gets those.
I'm just praying for a Max and I same 60 mirror match in the finals. That's what I want.
Let's go.
That would be sick.
Hey, you know what? It's possible. It's possible.
It is possible. It is absolutely possible. Just don't get paired round 1.
Round 1 would be fine. It's more in top 8, top 4, or day 2 in general.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, I suppose that's true. Nice.
Yeah. Well, then we do. Well, that's looking a bit into the future. Looking a little bit closer to now. We have the Vancouver Regional Championships coming up this weekend. You guys won't be attending, but I have decided to make the trip over there. I've always wanted to visit Vancouver, so
nice.
We're making a little trip of it. And yeah, excited to play that one last ride regional championships in this format, I guess.
Well, I will say that there is a certain Max Johnson who seems to do very well at the final regional of pre-rotation format. So the odds are in your favor.
Definitely going to try to repeat. Just thinking about like what we're going to see at this regional, I don't think it'll be anything too surprising. Format's largely solved, I think, to what most people would agree. But like I said, this is the one last ride tournament. So any of those Rapid Strike heads, any of those Mew heads, any of those Zorobox heads, we got Anthony Bruno out there somewhere. I don't know if he's watching, but that guy's the Zorobox king. This will be the last opportunity to play any of those decks at a regional, at any event actually. And so I fully expect there to be a lot of Mew. That's like my first thought on what we're gonna see. I think everyone's gonna want that played Mew to some amount this season will be strongly considering playing it.
They want a Fusion Strike system one more time.
And it's not a bad choice. It's done very well. Recently has won a lot of stuff lately. It's been doing really well. I actually think it won one of the late nights tonight as we are recording this.
Oh, really?
I'm pretty sure it did.
Interesting.
Yeah. So, definitely expect to see a lot of Mew, but I think we'll see a lot of the usual suspects with like the Charizard decks, the Roaring Moon decks, the Lost Box decks.
Yeah.
Do you think that there could be a rise in the Pidgeot control since we did just see that win in Brazil?
I am gonna say that there could be more Pidgeot decks than there were in Brazil, and I think numbers wise there likely will be, but I don't think the percentage wise rises that much.
Yeah,
that's a kind of deck that a lot of people don't really like putting a lot of time into. I think most players in the trading card game typically steer away from control style decks.
Yeah.
For the most part, it's not a super popular choice. So I think we'll definitely see a couple people pick it up, but I don't think it'll be anything crazy popular. I don't think it would make it on the day one graphic or anything like that.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I would be very surprised if if that ended up happening. That'd be a little frightening, probably to a lot of people.
You guys aren't going, but if you were going, what do you think you would play to this regional?
I mean, I think if I were going, I'd probably play Guardy.
Yeah.
Just because it's the deck I have the most time in. I know how to play it well, and best 2 out of 3 is kind of my thriving environment. So that's probably what I would do, but I'd be making a very difficult choice right about now as to whether I would be playing VIP pass or not.
Yeah.
So that would be kind of the big decision for me at this point.
Yeah, you like you think it has a pretty strong place in the meta right now. We've been seeing Guardy on the rise a little bit recently. Takes a pretty strong matchup into Roaring Moon, and so if Roaring Moon's really popular, Gardevoir is a great pick. Does pretty well
Right.
into Charizard. That's a
Mhm.
very popular deck as well. So yeah, I think Guardy makes a lot of sense.
Not a ton of Maridon out
Yeah,
there right now, which that's kind of, I don't know. To me, I feel like that's like the worst matchup.
yeah,
Is the Maridon
that's a
matchup.
tough one.
Yeah.
If they hit hands, it's just like, boy, you better you better have opened just like the perfect like 8 cards
Yeah,
Yeah.
on your first turn, first and second turn.
kind of funny. Again, talking about this one last ride. Not that Maridon rotates, but the deck seems to fall off a cliff next format. So we could see some one last rides with current iteration Maridon
Yeah.
as well. You never know.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised to see that for sure.
It's funny you say that. I'm not a Maridon head, and I have not played any standard in like 2 or 3 weeks. I've just been focused on post rotation.
Mhm.
But as you were asking the question, my brain went right to Maridon. Maridon with a Mew counter seems pretty good.
And so, what do you think? Gonna come at you with Spiritomb or Drapion? Which one would you lean towards right
Probably
now?
have to do the Tomb. Drapion just like it's not good enough into other matchups. At least the Tomb helps against Zard and control and that sort of thing a little bit.
Right.
Not letting them Rotom. So probably would have to be the Tomb.
Makes a lot of sense.
I agree with that. Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah,
one last ride for this format. I'm excited to
yeah,
see what comes out on top. We'll be obviously rooting for you and everyone else from Minnesota that is going to be headed to Vancouver. And yeah, it's always cool to see how people cap off a format, because this really is the end of a format, not only because we have a new set coming out, but Battle VIP Pass is gone, and so are a lot of other cards that people are fond of. So it'll be interesting to see what comes out on top.
yeah. Do you guys want to do a prediction for what wins?
Absolutely.
I'm locking in Mew. I'm locking in the Mew. I think Mew's gonna take the. How fitting would it be for Mew to take the last tournament of the season
Yeah,
of the
I
format?
think it's fitting. But I will say North American players, they don't let me win. We're not Europe over here. Although Canada's kind of Europe, so who knows?
Yeah, I was gonna say I respect the pick of Mew, but I would also throw up in my mouth a little bit if Mew won. I'm gonna go with. You know what? I think Charizard's gonna do it.
Charizard's gonna do it. All right.
I think Charizard's gonna do it. Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna throw it out there. I think Moon's gonna finally get its win
Okay.
before the Galarian Moltres is gone.
Yeah.
I can see it. I almost picked Moon, but
It's been seeing a lot of success. A lot of people playing it. Yeah, can totally see it.
yeah, it's been one of the most popular decks. I think a couple of these regionals, especially in the US, it's been like the most popular deck in day one, right?
Yeah, and it's had pretty good conversion rates today too, and it's been getting really close. I think we've had several tournaments where there was one or two or more in top 8. So yeah, I want to see Moon get there.
All right. Pretty strong pick.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think that wraps up the cast for this week. Thank you all for tuning in. You may have noticed we are trying to do more daily uploads throughout the week on the Zero Lab channel. So stay tuned for those. We're trying to do deck lists for the post rotation format, card reveals, and all that sort of stuff. So keep an eye out on the channel. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe on these videos. And we will see you guys in the next one.
Take care.